I just listened to Strawberry Fields Forever. I don't even know what to say. I feel like I've been born or something.
Yeah, it's really something.
The poetry, the language, the mood of it, the sound of it, the voice, his voice, the loneliness of it. I've never heard anything like it. I just like now I gotta play guitar. I kind of knew it from because I'm because we're I I know it, but I didn't know it. Now I want to know about him. Don't you? I want to know about it. I want to know.
Sure, I can tell you about him. What I know about him, what I feel about him. Where to begin? I mean, you're listening to Strawberry Fields Forever, and it's affecting you. And why? Why is that? Well, it's loneliness, alienation, self-doubt, self-awareness, made poetry and music. It could be the greatest song in the world. Well, he was born in 1940, in the middle of World War II, when the Nazis were dropping bombs and wreaking havoc all over the whole world, and amidst the bombing of Britain, out pops this future man, and he been abandoned by both his parents, and he was cared for by his aunt, his mother's sister. And when he was a young boy, 9 or 10 years old, his dear uncle passed away. He knew great loss and grief, and he lived with that his whole life. And this made him tough, it hardened him, and he was a gentle soul, an artistic soul, the most artistic soul. I think he's probably the most artistic person that I've ever heard of. He was the ultimate artist. He could draw, he could paint, God knows he could write songs. And then his mother was kind of down the street living this life, and he knew her and loved her and adored her and wanted her. And she wanted him too, but her life had gone maybe in another direction or something, and so they were mother and son, but they were also kind of friends, and maybe it was a bit confusing for him growing up, and she taught him how to play some chords on, I think, the ukulele or the banjo, or he was musical from the outset, and then she died. His mother, Julia, and he was never the same, and he had to carry that cross for his whole life. You take such an artistic personality and you galvanize it with such inner turmoil and suffering. I'm amazed that he didn't kill himself, or kill some other people, or become a criminal, or, turn to a life of negativity and rage and hatred and all of that. And yet he didn't. He was made of such strong stuff. And then he heard rock and roll. He heard rock and roll music. He heard Elvis Presley. He heard Chuck Berry. He heard Little Richard, Fats Domino, the Everly Brothers, Jerry Lee Lewis,
Buddy Holly,
Ray Charles, James Brown, these incredible people. And it saved his life and gave him a life. Then met this other guy named Paul McCartney. And that's amazing to me, that these two guys were born within a year and a half of each other in the same northern town. I've always thought that it was God's response to World War II and Hitler and the Holocaust. Like right in the midst of that awfulness, complete insanity, chaos, the worst of mankind. And right in the middle of that, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, who grow up, they all meet each other, they become this thing called the Beatles. Lights the way for millions and millions of people to explore their own dreams. And they're the band, and they're the first band. They're the first modern rock and roll band, and they write their own songs, and they sing their own songs, and they play their own instruments, and they make their own records. and they do shows, and they're playing this fantastic music that you guys are now listening to, and it changed the world, and it made the world new for generations to come. It's incredible. I Want to Hold Your Hand. She Loves You. Hard Day's Night. Can't Buy Me Love. I Feel Fine 8 days a week. And he's the leader of that group, and his voice is the lead voice, and together with Paul McCartney's voice, it's just the greatest sound in the world. And it turns you on, and it gets you up, and it inspires you. Just so, and it makes you happy. It's like vitamin C or sunshine. It's just incredible what their voices could do. And his way with a melody and Paul's way with a melody, the way they wrote songs. They all had the same hair. I'll show you pictures. They had the same hair, and they all wore matching suits, and they looked like one when they performed. They looked like one creature, like a spaceship or a four-headed mythological creature sent to heal the world or turn you on. And then they made all this incredible music together, and they made films, and they were funny, and he led the way. He was the guy. He was the force behind it all. And because of him, we have Paul McCartney. And then he wrote Strawberry Fields Forever, the song that just blew your mind. And he was still in the middle of such pain and loneliness and longing and loss of identity. He didn't know who he was or what he was supposed to do. And he's questioning all these things, and he's thinking, why am I here? What's my purpose? Why am I in so much pain all the time? And then right after that, he meets Yoko, who gave him a life and set him free and turned him on and taught him how to be himself and free in his art and his expression. And then the Beatles went on for a little bit more, and they made the greatest records ever. And then they broke up. And they went their separate ways, and he did Give Peace a Chance, right? And then he did the Plastic Ono Band album with Working Class Hero and Mother and God. And then he did Imagine. He wrote Imagine. This guy wrote Imagine. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world can be as one. He had a way to inspire you. He could inspire your mind and your thoughts, and he was a great teacher, and the most wonderful songwriter. Mind games. Whatever gets you through the night, it's all right, it's all right. Out the blue or out of sight, it's all right, it's all right. Don't need a gun to blow your mind. Oh no, oh no. Then he took some time off to raise the child that he and Yoko had, Sean, who I would hope gave him great joy and some kind of peace. This guy deserves some peace. He had a rough go. His first son, Julian, had a rough go. And his first wife, Cynthia, she had a rough go. No, he was not like other people. He was an extraordinary man, and he lived an extraordinary life. And he was in pain, coupled with all this joy he was making and creating for the world. And these people, these important people, he turned on. There's no way that Steve Jobs, the guy who did Apple's a Beatle thing, right? Apple Corps, Apple Records. This Steve Jobs is in his room somewhere as a young guy. He's listening to the Beatles. There's no doubt of it. He's creating a new world, and on it goes. Even hip hop music. Lennon's doing it with Give Peace a Chance. Everybody's talking about baggism, magism, shaggism, ragism, thisism, thatism, ism. I Am the Walrus. That's hip hop. In 1967. I'm not giving him sole credit for hip hop, but this dude was major. The most major ever. And then 1980 they came back. They made a record called Double Fantasy. The record came out and it had just the greatest songs on it. Just Like Starting Over, Woman, Beautiful Boy, right? And Watching the Wheels. It's the playbook for being an adult, for being a husband and a father, and how to do it. Like, he's taught me everything. He's taught me my whole life. You know, you're feeling that now. You hear Strawberry Fields and the whole world opens or something. I can't explain it, but that's, you know, so you're sitting there with the guitar, man. It's a beautiful thing. You know, you're going to write some songs now because of John Lennon. And then near the end of that year, he was killed. You know, this man who gave so much joy and inspiration and hope and optimism and ideas and concepts and the greatest songs in the world was murdered. You know, right up on the cross, kind of, I think. It's never made any sense to me. Except that maybe it was because he was so brave in his viewpoints and his perspective on life and people and humanity and the world at large, and he wasn't afraid to say what he thought. You know, he was a free thinker, and he laid it out there. And I guess that's a pretty dangerous thing to do. But we've got his art, his work to go on and to steer by. You know, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, Help, Norwegian Wood, In My Life, She Said, Tomorrow Never Knows, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, A Day in the Life, All You Need Is Love, Dear Prudence, Happiness is a Warm Gun, Revolution, Come Together, Because, Instant Karma, Isolation, Woman is the Nigger of the World. Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange days indeed. Most peculiar, Mama. Whoa. A good time.
Trying to make friends with the hole here in my soul. I'd like to be a rock, but I usually end up broke.